Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog, and this is the first time this season that I'm making a video that's not just completely Indiana Pacers oriented. We're at that point now where trade season is officially underway, or at least the doors are open on, players being able to be traded. And I wanted to go down the list of all the guys that are like on expiring deals or guys who are rumored to be in trade talks and stuff like that, and just go over guys who I think will get traded, guys who I think won't get traded, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the first guy I have on the list is Michael Porter Jr. of the Denver Nuggets. I believe he's making like $35 million this year, and to be quite honest with you, I don't think he's really lived up to the max contract that he's gotten. You have to understand the Denver Nuggets paid this guy like $200 million to be a guy who averages like 15 points a game. It's safe to say that his contract hasn't really worked out for them. It's actually kind of screwed them in a lot of ways. That contract has made it so they really couldn't re-sign Bruce Brown. Then they had to let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope walk. Michael Porter Jr., while he's a player that I think would be a lot better on a team where he gets the opportunity to be like a primary guy or a guy that a team builds around, kind of like a Kawhi Leonard type in a way, like a guy that I just feel like, like Kawhi Leonard was great in San Antonio, regardless of whether he was, coming off the bench or just a guy who wasn't really a key part of the rotation. But Michael Porter Jr. is a guy that, after what we saw in high school, he is a guy that you could build a team around, as long as the back issues figure itself out. That's like the one thing about him that I really worry about. But Michael Porter Jr. is a guy that I feel like makes a lot of sense for like the Chicago Bulls to trade for. As in they have Zach LaVine, they would like to get something younger. Michael Porter Jr. has a bunch of talent that I feel like is just simply not being tapped in Denver, because obviously Jamal Murray and Jokic are going to get the ball way before he does. He's been kind of relegated to a catch and shoot role in Denver, and I feel like if Denver would really like to get more isolation offense, or a third body to create offense or whatever, and I just don't think Michael Porter Jr. is the guy that they're willing to commit to for that. Even though I think he's a guy they maybe should give a little bit more leeway to, I think Michael Porter Jr. would be better off on a rebuilding team. Even a team like the Nets wouldn't be the end of the world. A team that really, really wants to rebuild, maybe get themselves a Cooper flag or get into the Cooper flag conversation. That's just where I'm at on that. I think Michael Porter Jr. definitely gets traded to who? I think the Chicago Bulls, most likely for Zach LaVine, but you never know. There could be a bunch of teams trying to trade for Michael Porter Jr. for all I know. But the second player on the list is Zach LaVine. Yes, I think Zach LaVine will get traded. He's at this point, he's a guy that I feel like, the Denver Nuggets appear to be really interested in him. I feel like that trade is going to happen. I don't know to where, but Zach LaVine's a guy that if you're a team that's looking for a guy who can just flat out score, yeah, Zach LaVine's the guy. I'll give you that. Zach LaVine is ridiculous when it comes to scoring the basketball. He's not so good at everything else, as far as passing the ball, as far as playing defense. He's strictly an isolation guy. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of like, almost like a modern day Kobe Bryant, a guy who you're just going to put the ball in his hands and say, go get me 30. You know what I'm saying? And Zach LaVine can do that. Granted, it's a $35 million contract, or the contract's worth $35 million this year, but that's more tradable than you would normally think. Zach LaVine's a guy I think will get traded. Next is Jimmy Butler. I'm just going to say no. I don't think Jimmy Butler gets traded. If Miami does trade Jimmy Butler, it will have to be for a lot less than what they want for him. His contract is absolutely insane. He has a player option next year for like $52 million. I think he's making $48 this year. Jimmy Butler's a guy that is a lose-lose situation, I think, for whatever team trades for him. It's a lose-lose situation for both the team receiving him, and it's also a lose-lose, I believe, because Miami is not going to get what they want for him. They paid Jimmy Butler an ass ton of money, and now Jimmy Butler's age is starting to show. He's a guy that, honestly, I mean, like, if you're the Miami Heat and you can land Bradley Beal out of Jimmy Butler, then I think it's a win. But Jimmy Butler is just not what he used to be. I actually think any team that trades for Jimmy Butler is getting worse. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but Jimmy Butler, I feel like he's out all the time. I feel like he's injured all the time now. He's kind of a shell of what he used to be. The numbers across the board really ain't that great. So, I'm going to have to say no on Jimmy Butler. I know there's a lot of buzz around Jimmy Butler, but I don't see it happening. If this were Jimmy Butler of like 3 or 4 years ago, yeah, somebody would make a serious push, I think, for him. But these days, when he's making $48 million and he's only getting older, and then next year is projected to make $52 on a player option, which he's going to accept. I mean, he's never going to make $52 million in a year ever again in his career. You have to understand that you're also trading for that. And he's not, I don't even think he's averaging 20 points per game anymore. So that's something to consider if you're a team trading for him. And I simply think, trading for Jimmy Butler just for vibes doesn't make sense. Now, if you're a younger team and you got some some contracts you don't care about, or guys that are just getting paid a little bit more money than they should be, bringing in Jimmy Butler could be a benefit to maybe some of your younger players. If you're a Detroit, for example, right? Like, if you're the Detroit Pistons, bringing in Jimmy Butler maybe would be good for, just to have him in the building, you know what I'm saying? As far as, a guy who will coach the younger players and teach them defense and teach them how to do certain things. That's really the only scenario in which I see anybody trading for Jimmy Butler. And there's really, I don't even have any team that I feel like would really be interested in him. There's teams Jimmy Butler's interested in, but even if you're the Golden State Warriors, right, and you wanted to get rid of Andrew Wiggins, right, even trading Andrew Wiggins for Jimmy Butler at this point, I feel like is a downgrade. Especially with the money that comes with it, you're trying to win Steph another ring. You're not trying to take on bad contracts, especially if that's your goal at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm an absolute no on Jimmy Butler. Next is Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson's been kind of rumored in some trades recently. I just don't see it happening. I don't. I'm sorry. This would mean that the Pelicans are blowing up their roster. Now, I will say this. It would make a lot of sense for the Pelicans to blow up their roster this year. CJ McCollum's a guy that's getting older. Brandon Ingram's on an expiring deal. And Zion Williamson is almost never healthy. It makes sense for them to do that. However, I just don't think that they will. There's no guarantee that they get Cooper Flagg, even though they have one of the worst records in the NBA right now for all the talent that they have. They just traded for DeJounte Murray in the offseason. So I feel like this is a team that they've tried again to put a decent team around Zion. And I don't even if they do blow it up, I feel like Zion Williamson's the one guy that they will not trade. Mostly because of the injury stuff, but also because, I feel like a lot of teams aren't going to want to trade for him because of the injury stuff, but also what the Pelicans are going to want for him is, like I said, the market for Zion Williamson is not going to be what the Pelicans want it to be, and at that point, right, if you're the Pelicans, you might as well keep DeJounte Murray, keep Zion Williamson, and just hope you get Cooper Flagg in the draft, or draft somebody with some promise. I feel like that's where the team is at. Trey Murphy's very good. Herb Jones is very good. So really, they don't even really need to go after Cooper Flagg, but they might be a team that's interested in that. I don't know. So I don't really know what direction the Pelicans should go in, but I just feel like Zion's one of the few guys on that roster that I feel like will not get traded. So there's that. Next is Brandon Ingram. Yes, I feel like Brandon Ingram gets traded. I don't think the market for Brandon Ingram is going to be what the Pelicans want it to be, but he's on an expiring deal. He's making $36 million a year, and he has a lot of suitors. He's even a guy that maybe even the Nuggets would get in on, only because his contract's only $1 million more than Zach LaVine's. And Brandon Ingram is maybe a little bit more. His play style is a lot more like Michael Porter Jr., where he just kind of, melds into the offense and shoots threes, and, like Brandon Ingram gets you the most boring 30 points per game I've ever seen. But Zach LaVine, I could see why Denver would maybe be more interested in Zach LaVine, only because Zach LaVine is more of an aggressive scorer. He's a guy that, like, once he gets it going, he gets it going. But Brandon Ingram's a guy that, like, he can give you, like, a cool 30 points a game sometimes, and it looks like he's not even trying. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know, maybe for the versatility aspect, maybe you go after Brandon Ingram. If you're looking for defense, too, I think Brandon Ingram's a better defender than Zach LaVine. But I don't know. If you're going after pure scoring, which appears to be what they're going after, Zach LaVine seems to be the candidate. So, next is Miles Turner. I'm just going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is because the front office hasn't been able to trade Miles Turner for 5 years now. I don't think this year makes it any different, even though he's on an expiring deal. I actually feel like the Pacers might lose Miles Turner for nothing, depending on how the season ends. Right now, the Pacers are playing better, but Miles Turner is a guy that I don't know. If we make the playoffs and we do, like, get out of the second round, maybe Miles returns. I don't know, but guys like this are very hard to tell because they've never been free agents before. But I just, with the way the front office is, I don't know if you can necessarily get a center back for Miles Turner. Like, if they wanted to trade Miles Turner to Cleveland to get Jared Allen, I would be all for that. I think that's a trade that works out for all the teams involved, mostly because Evan Mobley has played a lot better this year, and he's looking like a monster as well. Miles Turner is a guy that, they would be able to stretch the floor even more, give Evan Mobley that space to operate inside the paint. I also think Jared Allen solves a lot of the problems that Indiana has as far as, like, rebounding and all this other stuff. Yeah, he's not going to stretch the floor for you, but you just traded for Thomas Bryant. So, I don't know. I feel like they're kind of in the same tier of center almost, but that's just what I think. That's just my opinion. I personally, I just feel like also the front office just won't trade him. I don't know why. As much as they want to trade Miles Turner, I also feel like there's a part of them that really love him. And for whatever reason, I just feel like he won't get traded. Next is De'Aaron Fox. No. Like, do I need to go any further on that? No, I do not think De'Aaron Fox is going to get traded. I don't know where the fuck these random trade ideas come from that people are like, oh, De'Aaron Fox said this, so now all of a sudden he's in trade talk. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I still think Sacramento is too early in their trio experiment to blow this up. They have Malik Monk, they have Kevin Huerter, they have DeMar DeRozan now, they still have Sabonis, they have De'Aaron Fox. That team, I think, they still have Keegan Murray. They're a team that I just feel like trading De'Aaron Fox would just be stupid. Unless he demands a trade, no, they're not going to trade him. Next is Clint Capella of the Atlanta Hawks. Yes, I feel like Clint Capella gets traded for who, I'm not sure. He's probably another trade candidate, I think, for the Indiana Pacers, maybe, just because you need to trade a center for a center. So Clint Capella is a guy that I don't think the market's very huge for. But I mean, like I said, the Pacers need a guy that can rebound, and Clint Capella kind of fits the bill for that. I haven't watched a whole lot of Clint Capella tape, but I know a little bit about him from his Houston days and his Atlanta Hawk days. Like, he's just not the player he used to be when Atlanta traded for him. So I don't really know if that can be unlocked again. But yeah, I think Clint Capella gets traded. I just don't know to who. Next is Cameron Johnson of the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, I feel like he gets traded. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, you'd be stupid not to trade him right now. He's posting career highs across the board. And when you have a player like that, I think you should capitalize on it, especially when your team is not overtly great in any category or any capacity. Apparently, everybody on their roster is available, with exception of like one or two players. So yeah, Cam Johnson's a guy that I feel will get traded. Next is Dorian Finney-Smith. This is like an absolutely. I think Dorian Finney-Smith will absolutely get traded to who, I don't know, but he's still a very, very good player. I think he still shoots 42% from three, and he's still a really, really good defender. So yeah, I actually think Dorian Finney-Smith gets traded. Next is Nikola Vucevic of the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to say no. I don't think he gets traded. He's just a random, like, I know Golden State's looking at him, but that's pretty much it. Next is Kobe White of the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to say no unless the trade really blows their minds. Kobe White is a guy that even proved me wrong. A couple of years ago when they signed him to an extension, I was like, I can't believe they re-signed Kobe White. Because Kobe White was terrible for them. And they re-signed him, and then he had this amazing resurgence. He's a guy that reminds me a little bit of like a Derek White type of player. So it depends on what the trade package is. But for right now, no. I don't think they trade Kobe White. I feel like worst case scenario, Kobe White could be their point guard of the future, and I think they should keep him on the roster depending on what happens with Lonzo Ball. Like, yeah, Lonzo Ball is healthy now. I actually think he's a guy that the Chicago Bulls could try to trade, being that he's healthy and still now he's playing really well. We'll see what happens, but I feel like Kobe White's the Lonzo Ball insurance policy, and I just don't think they're going to trade away the insurance policy. I just don't think that's going to happen. Next is Karis LeVert of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's on an expiring deal, so yes, I think he does get traded. For who, I don't know, but he's a very, very good mid-range scorer. He's a guy he's a vet. He's been in the league a while. Some team could really use him. I don't know who, but he's a guy that I feel like somebody's going to trade for. Next is Jonathan Kuminga of the Golden State Warriors. I'm just going to say no. I don't think Jonathan Kuminga gets traded. He's been playing very, very well. He's also like a young guy that I think the Golden State Warriors would like to hold on to. Next is Andrew Wiggins. I would say yes on Andrew Wiggins last year, but Andrew Wiggins is playing out of his mind this year. It depends on what the trade package is for Andrew Wiggins, but his deal is on the cheaper side. I think he's making like $25 million a year, but he's shooting like 49% from the field while shooting 43% from three this year on 17 points a game and like 76% from the free throw line. Andrew Wiggins has been good for the Golden State Warriors this year. I don't think they trade him. Next is Jarris Walker of the Indiana Pacers. If anybody's the odd man out on the Indiana Pacers right now, I do think it's Jarris Walker. It depends on what happens with Miles Turner for Jarris Walker. I feel like if there is a Miles Turner trade and they're going after somebody big and they really, really want to get that trade done, Jarris Walker will be included. Even if it is a Jared Allen trade or something like that, right? If they do that, Jarris Walker is going to be the kicker in that trade. Like I said, as long as Miles Turner's not getting traded, I don't think Jarris Walker will get traded, regardless of how bad or how good you think he's played this year. He's a guy that for right now it's a no, but if there's a Miles Turner trade on the table and they need a kicker to like make it go through, Jarris Walker's the guy that I think will be put in that deal. So it's not going to be Andrew Nembhard. I know there's a lot of people who are talking about Andrew Nembhard's contract extension next year and how this year he's only worth $2 million, but next year he's worth $18 million. Unless you get something absolutely ridiculous for Andrew Nembhard at this point, Andrew Nembhard is not getting traded. I don't care what your philosophy is. Okay, Andrew Nembhard has a spot on the roster that is permanent until further notice. So, yeah, that's where I'm at on that. Next is Amir Coffey. Yes, I think Amir Coffey gets traded to a team. Amir Coffey's a good player. He's playing in Los Angeles. I don't think he's a guy that I just feel like is probably going to go someplace else. So, yes, I think Amir Coffey gets traded. Next is LeBron James. I'm going to say no. Okay, I've been seeing the whole, I want to play with the Golden State Warriors bullshit all over Twitter. No, I don't think LeBron's going anywhere. As long as his son is in LA, LeBron's not going anywhere, especially if he plays for the Lakers G League team. Okay, LeBron is not going to leave his son's side in the pros. I just don't think it's gonna happen. I feel like this has more to do with his son at this point than it has to do with basketball, and he has a no trade clause. So I'm just gonna say no. Unless you plan to trade Bronny James to the Golden State Warriors with him, which is a possibility, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Next is Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is a guy that I definitely think gets traded. Even though the Grizzlies would maybe like to keep him around, he's on an expiring deal. Marcus Smart is a really, really good player. I just think he's on an expiring deal and somebody is going to want him. That's just kind of where I'm at on that. Next is a guy who's not really in trade conversations, or we haven't heard anything, but like these last couple guys are guys that are just they're not on expiring deals, but they're guys that are just in places where I think they no longer fit. These are guys that I feel like are either injury prone or not putting up good numbers, or just guys that are good players in wrong places on expiring deals, etc., etc. This is just the last like 5 guys. This one's Chris Middleton. I know this one's gonna surprise some of you, but I think Chris Middleton gets traded. Chris Middleton with the injury stuff is just a guy that I think the Bucks want to get off of. I don't know what a trade market for Chris Middleton at the moment looks like, but he's a guy that I feel like they would love to get off of, just because if they could get something more like a guy who's just not as injury prone, I think that would be a big deal for Milwaukee. Maybe a guy who's a better defender. So yeah, I think Chris Middleton's a guy who will be in talks. Right now I have him as a yes. It's a possibility, it's a no. But I do know that the Milwaukee Bucks would like to try and make a real push to win a championship this year, especially with the way that Giannis is playing right now. Have him on my fantasy team. But yeah, I think Chris Middleton's a guy that they will shop around. Will he move? I don't know, but I think they're going to try really hard to get rid of him. So that's where I'm at on Chris Middleton. Also, Chris Middleton's getting pretty old too. Next is CJ McCollum, another guy who's getting up there in age, who the Pelicans would maybe like to get younger at. Now, on a normal year, I would say that like CJ McCollum for Andrew Nembhard, if you're a Pacers fan, is a trade the Pelicans would like. And adding CJ McCollum next to Tyrese Halliburton is, you get some more experience in there. You get a secondary ball handler as well. But CJ McCollum's not the defender that Andrew Nembhard is, and also Andrew Nembhard has years on CJ McCollum age-wise. So I'm just going to say this. I think CJ McCollum gets traded. I don't know to who. But maybe even, like I said, that's another maybe Michael Porter Jr. trade, or, even a Zach LaVine trade. I don't know. That's always a possibility. So I think there's going to be a market for CJ McCollum. I just don't know what that market looks like. Next is Bruce Brown of the Toronto Raptors. Yes, he's on an expiring deal, and I think another team would like to take a swing on Bruce Brown. I just don't know who it's going to be. Most likely will be a team trying to compete for a chip. I have a feeling that the Denver Nuggets will probably be in that conversation to some extent, only because that was the last time he played good. So, yeah, Bruce Brown's a guy that I think definitely gets traded, especially since he's on an expiring deal. Even if they can get a first-round pick for him, and just that, or a first-round pick and a promising young player or something, I feel like Toronto does that. Next is Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson, I'm just going to say yes, but that's because he's been playing so bad in Utah that it's kind of unbelievable. Jordan Clarkson's not the player that he used to be, and Utah will try desperately to get rid of that contract. He's a guy I think gets moved to somewhere. I don't know where, but he's going to end up in basketball purgatory somewhere. That's where I'm at on Jordan Clarkson. The last 2 guys are Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon's a guy playing for, I believe, Washington at the moment, and Washington is looking to maybe get in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So they've been a bad team. If they can get rid of Malcolm Brogdon, Valanciunas maybe even, maybe Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, somebody. Okay, if they can sell their roster and get in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, I think they're going to. And the last guy I've got is Lonzo Ball, and that's only because the Chicago Bulls, I feel like, would like to get off of Lonzo Ball while his value is high. Lonzo Ball's been playing very good this year. I don't know how crazy the trade market's going to be for him, considering he just came off of an injury where nobody thought he would even walk again. So, yeah, that's where I'm at on that. I do think Lonzo Ball's trade market is a little small, but we'll see. See what happens. But tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of here. Peace, guys.